Hi, my name is Mike. I'm a professor for social work management, and you are listening to Managing Around, the bi-weekly podcast about social science, culture, and management. Managing Around is part of the Talk About Organizations podcast network, a community resource and discussion platform for key ideas in management and organization studies, which is supported by our listeners.
Hello and welcome to this new episode of Managing Around. Today we will delve into the concept of the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, or for short, SOTL, and how it can lead to the development and improvement of teaching in higher education. This concept, pioneered by Ernest L. Boyer, emphasizes the importance of treating teaching as a scholarly activity subject to systematic inquiry, reflection, and improvement. Our discussion is based on an article from the eteaching.org website, which provides an excellent overview of this fascinating approach. We will follow 4 questions to get a bit more familiar with this concept. First, what is SOTL? Second, what steps are to be taken in the research process and what principles are to be followed? Third, what are the requirements for doing SOTL? And fourth, what benefits do scholars have from engaging in SOTL? Let's start with the first question. What is the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning? SOTL is an educational research approach that enables educators to systematically investigate their teaching practices and student learning. By engaging in this process, educators contribute to the wider knowledge base on effective teaching and learning strategies. The main goal of SOTL is to improve and enhance educational practices through ongoing reflection, inquiry, and assessment. In short, SOTL encourages faculty to view their teaching as a subject for scholarly investigation, and this is of paramount importance, so to share their findings with the academic community. Let's move on to the second question. What steps are to be taken in the research process and what principles are to be followed? The process of researching one's own teaching usually consists of 5 steps and is to be understood as an iterative process. First, start with questioning, which means developing a question about one's own teaching. Second, gathering and exploring evidence. This describes the recourse to existing observations and data, as well as the collection of new data. Third, testing and refining new insights. This means adapting one's own teaching practices to change and innovate. Fourth and fifth is going public and sharing knowledge. This includes the documentation and reflection of the findings, including collegial exchange and/or publications and presentations of the project. In general, SOTL focuses on the evaluation of the innovative teaching and learning formats applied to one's own course, as well as testing and redesigning teaching and learning processes. Let's move on to our third question. What are the requirements for doing SOTL? According to Lee Schulman, SOTL includes at least 4 key practices. Let's briefly explore each of them. First, the systematic inquiry. SOTL requires educators to ask meaningful research questions about their teaching and student learning, and to use appropriate methods to investigate these questions. Second, peer review. Like any other scholarly activity, SOTL should be subject to rigorous peer review. This ensures that the research is valid, reliable, and contributes to the scholarship in the field. Third, public dissemination. SOTL findings should be shared with the larger academic community. which helps to build the knowledge base on effective teaching and learning strategies. Fourth, application of findings. The ultimate goal of SOTL is to improve educational practices. Therefore, educators should use their findings to inform and enhance their own teaching as well as the practices of others. Let's move on to the fourth question. What benefits do scholars have from engaging in SOTL? By incorporating SOTL into their professional development, educators can experience several benefits. First, deepened understanding of teaching and learning. SOTL allows educators to develop a more sophisticated understanding of the teaching and learning process. Second, improved teaching practices. Through systematic inquiry and reflection, educators can identify areas of improvement in their teaching and develop strategies for addressing those areas. Third, enhanced student learning. By applying the findings of SOTL research, educators can create more effective learning environments and enhance student learning outcomes. Fourth, increased collaboration and community building. Engaging in SOTL encourages educators and teachers to collaborate with colleagues, fostering a community of learning dedicated to the ongoing improvements of teaching and learning. And fifth, recognition and reward for teaching excellence. SOTL can provide evidence of teaching effectiveness, which may be useful for promotion and tenure decisions. Although some higher education institutions, I must say, still find this aspect challenging. Let's summarize the lessons learned from today's episode. In conclusion, the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, SOTL, is a valuable approach for enhancing teaching quality in higher education. By treating teaching as a scholarly activity, educators can deepen their understanding of the teaching and learning process, improve their practices, and ultimately enhance student learning outcomes. If you are interested in learning more about this topic, I encourage you to visit the eteaching.org website and explore the wealth and resources available on the topic of SOTL. You'll find the reference in the show notes. Thank you for listening to this episode of Managing Around. I hope you found it informative and engaging. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening. Managing Around, the bi-weekly podcast about social science, culture, and management. Managing Around is part of the Talk About Organizations podcast network, a community resource and discussion platform for key ideas in management and organization studies, which is supported by our listeners. If you liked this episode, please leave a review on your favorite podcast website. There's also a link in the show notes. If you've got any thoughts on this episode, or if you've got any idea about new podcast topics or questions you'd like to discuss, send me an audio file or voice note to hi@profmanagement.de. For any non-audio comments, drop a tweet or DM to @profmanagement on Twitter or Instagram, please. For more information, visit my website www.profmanagement.de. Thank you for listening and see you next time.